Hey guys, this is Lorenz of the Keto and Coffee podcast. Make sure to subscribe down below so you don't miss out on any of this great content. I'm so excited for this, guys. We are doing something different on this podcast today. Today we get to learn from two exceptional individuals, share their story, and more importantly, learn about them and their experience with optimizing their health. If you're ready, our guests today are both licensed marriage and family therapists and life coaches. They specialize on helping people find motivation and improve their lives. They are also coach practitioners trained in the low carbohydrate and keto lifestyle. Their clinic, The Mighty Mind, focuses on helping others create a life that carries much more excitement, success, and enjoyment. I'm so excited for this. I am here with Gay Patricia Matheson and Dean Della Giudice. Sorry, I hope I got that right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lorenz. Good to be here.
They're also husband and wife combo, guys, entrepreneurs and practitioners. This is so exciting, guys. It's so wonderful to have you guys on here to discuss all about, your work and your work about, obviously we're here because of, the low carb movement and how did that help you achieve an optimal health for yourself and now helping others as well. So welcome, guys.
Thank you. Good to be here, Lorenz.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome, guys. So I'm so excited for this. I love the topic of happiness, and I've been on a journey that I talk about on the show a lot of times, and the theme is so fitting. We talked before we went live that I am reading this book called Think and Grow Rich. Not thank, like gratefulness, which really talks about having a rich life inside of us through gratitude. And that really resonated with me because of, how I got here. And for me, really, nothing that you have, I myself became dissatisfied, when I was working for a corporate job that I didn't like. But enough of that. On this show today, we will get into Gay and Dean's story on how they got into their profession today and how a low-carb, high-fat diet like keto can help you achieve your optimal health. Dean, let me start with you. Give us a little background on what got you into your practice today and the low-carb movement. Hey guys, let me tell you about this delivery service that's been a total game changer for my lifestyle. Did you know that it's now possible to get local, fresh groceries delivered right at your doorstep? Well, Instacart gives you unlimited grocery delivery for one low monthly fee. And if I can avoid buying non-keto friendly items from supermarkets who psychs you into buying unhealthy foods, plus if it saves me a lot of time and money, sign me up. Instacart is hand-selected by shoppers based on your preferences, so no more rock-hard avocados, and they will keep your eggs safe too. And Instacart will find everything you usually buy and get smart suggestions for new items. And you can get your first order today delivered for free when you purchase over $35 by following the link on the show notes below to let Instacart know that I sent you and to help to support the show. Instacart. Never step foot in the grocery store again.
Well, what got me into my psychotherapy practice, which then segued into the low carb?
Yes.
Well, I was in sales and marketing for the first half of my life. I returned to college in my 30s and became a licensed marriage and family therapist because the sales and marketing just didn't have any meaning for me anymore. When I was a kid, it was fun because I made money and I thought that was what it was all about, but it became a hollow experience. And I wanted to do something where I felt I was helping people and making a difference in the lives of others. So that is why I went back to school, got my license. That's where I met this beautiful woman. It was a double bonus. Met her in graduate school. And we did our internships together and opened our practice together 23 years ago. Yep. So one day, after we'd been practicing for years, a client of mine came in and he had a window washing business.
A 79-year-old client.
Yeah. And he comes in and he's just all full of energy. And he starts telling me about this ketogenic diet. And I I looked at him. I said, "Do I look like I need to be on a diet? I mean, my wife and I are thin people." He goes, "But you don't understand. It's not just about losing weight. You get all this energy." And I said, "Well, energy is something I can sure use." So I talked to Gay about it, and then we started researching, because before we're going to go off on some kind of a fad thing, we thought we're going to see what's really at the bottom of it. And we found a lot of fascinating data, and we actually ended up joining the Noakes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Noakes
where
Foundation.
Lorenz found us.
Oh, that's where you found us. Right.
Yeah.
Right. So we studied there, and that's where we got certified as ketogenic practitioners.
And remember, Lorenz, Dean is
Excuse me.
you don't know this, but Dean is a fabulous cook. And I mean fabulous. And he learned from his Italian mother. So pasta was a big part of our lives. You know, we loved pasta and had it at least probably 3 times a week. So this was a real challenge for us. Also, we were raised with, the American diet, which was at that time absolutely low fat, no fat. And so the transition was interesting. It was challenging.
It was hard for me as someone who cooks to figure out how to get enough fat in the diet, especially since I was transitioning from a lean Mediterranean type, what they recommended.
Yeah.
One of the challenges that a lot of our clients bring up, I think you'll agree, well, I can't have this and I can't have that. So I turned that around and I thought, well, what can we have? And we can have lots of it, because there's no portion control really.
Focus on what you can have, right, Dean?
Yeah. So that was the direction I set my mind in for my new style of cooking, and started making more of what we could have and expanding that way, instead of focusing on what we can't have, which is, I think, why most people fail on this diet.
I agree.
Oh, I can't have this, I can't have that, but you can have that, and that,
Butter, cream.
Yeah. That's huge. That's huge, because a lot of people would start the diet and question, oh, is this keto? And they're questioning because they're not doing their own research. And that for me is a red flag, because if you're asking me, you're not doing your own research, then you don't desire enough to do your own research.
Yes.
So if you are somebody that's really want to make a change, and I've seen this through, a lot of people that come on the show, and my experience with people that, wanting to make a change, but, struggle to actually make a change. There was a quote that I heard yesterday that reads, "Nothing changes if nothing changes." I'm like,
that's great, because it's just, that's it.
I'm like, it's so simple. The change is so simple, but what we cannot, follow through on actually doing the work. So that's what I really am fascinated about figuring out with people. That's why I started the show, because I want people to come on that had great success with keto to tell me how they actually, transition from knowing what to do to actually taking action. And in your story, somebody came in, a client of yours, talking about, having all of this energy, and you've probably seen him having all of this energy. He's not just talking, he's living it.
And we're always interested in energy. I mean, energy's the name of the game, right? So anything that we can do to enhance our energy, I mean, we have a number of things we do to make sure that we have a lot of energy.
So do you think, for me, I believe this, we have an energy crisis, and that's what I had. I want to tell you my story, the short version of my story. I talked earlier about being on finance for 5 years and being very dissatisfied in what I'm doing. And just looking back, I was miserable, and I suffered from chronic anxiety. I was excited in the beginning, and that excitement, slowly dwindled down as I became, just another employee in the company.
Right.
And at one point, I told you guys before we went live that I I was somebody that's experiencing chronic anxiety, depression, and there was one night that I experienced a severe panic attack. That's after that followed by intense fear, and it was a hell of a ride. But it taught me a lot about myself, and that's really when my self-discovery started. Because actually, I would say I was coerced into doing self-care after that. It pushed me to know what's going on, and it pushed me to really doing the work. But I think the difference with me is I met with several psychotherapists. I've probably had 4 or 5, and on my last one, I think the practitioner, she was practicing CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy. And for me, I never wanted to be on any medication anyway, so I naturally went this direction. And I learned CBT, I learned meditation, which led to self-improvement, because I was learning from my past experience. I was learning about myself, and I just love the experience, because without it, I would never learn self-care. I would never be this person, which is the anxious version. I was depressed. And for me, the difference for me, I think, is I opened up. There was somebody in my life that I looked up to, and she told me, when I told her my story, she told me, you will get better because you talk about your problems. You talk to somebody about your problems.
You're not just shoving them down.
Yeah, and I think for me, maybe it was ego before, that I'm not accepting what I'm feeling. That's why I'm shoving them down, and not really thinking about figuring out what's going on with my life. And I think once I opened up and trusted my therapist, in return, I was gifted this life that I know now. And I really believe it all stemmed from myself just never being satisfied, self-critical, which I thought was good to get what I want, being a go-getter and never settling, right? But instead, it led to dissatisfaction and unhappiness, and frankly became a negative person. So I want to talk to you guys about changing your thinking to change your life. I love this quote. I love this slogan on your website, because, I truly believe this too. I love this quote. Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing you did, Lorenz, which is really valuable, I think, is you took the panic and the fear as a messenger. Like it wasn't a terrible thing, because it created an opening for you.
You know what, Gay?
Catalyst for change.
Dean, there was one thing that's missing from my story. My mom, she told me that my grandfather had so debilitating fear, he never finished college because he was so afraid of heights. He couldn't get up the stairs, and that stopped him from getting what he wanted. And when I heard that story, I'm like, I don't want that to happen to me.
Right.
I don't want my fear stopping me from getting what I want. And that story, that my grandfather's story, helped me push through fear. Because for him, not being able to finish college and doing what he loves to do, because of that fear, I'm not letting that happen to me.
Right. Good.
And so that's why I love that. So guys, I want to talk to you guys about this change your thinking, because I think this is huge for people. I love this quote by Marcus Aurelius, a great Roman emperor. He said, very little is needed to make a happy life. It is all within yourself, in your way of thinking.
I just read that.
Yep.
I just read that like yesterday or the day before. We love him. Isn't that a great quote?
It makes everything, it makes sense. And you also talk about the fact that we can change our lives by changing our thinking. This is so powerful, guys. And because that means we can actually be happy within ourselves by changing the way we think. Right. Question for you guys. How much control do we have with our own happiness? Any one of you guys can answer.
Total control.
We're the ones responsible for our own happiness and for our own safety. And until we take that responsibility and stop looking to get that from external sources, it's always going to be a tenuous connection.
And how we interpret things. Like you're interpreting your distress as, hey, it pushed me to succeed. It pushed me to find happiness in other ways, things like meditation or keto or, so your interpretation of that was a healthy interpretation that helps you see. And when bad things happen, as they always do, right? Where life is ups and downs, how we interpret that is really important. And the book I wrote is your guide to self-actualization. So Maslow was the first guy that came and studied healthy people in the last century. And he got a tiny percent. They were the top, like 7% of the population, maybe even smaller. And one of the things they all had in common, they had many common characteristics, but one of the things they had in common, my favorite, is things happen for a reason and they serve me. So everything in our life, we're going to look for the jewel in it. And I was telling that to a graduate student in psychology that was my client. And I said, what do you think about that? And she said, well, I don't think I believe it. And I said, well, if you did believe it, what do you think would happen? And she said, well, I'd find the jewel in every situation. And I said, well, maybe you should just pretend you believe it.
Just start doing it.
Start believing it just for fun.
You know why it's true? You know why I believe that so much? And would you believe that it only made sense to me a couple of weeks ago? And the reason why, for me, the reason how I, connected that for me is because whenever something happens, something greater happens, because whenever a door closes, another opens.
Yes.
And before I could never, I could never understand it. As maybe as an example, if when something bad happens, I would always, think that, woe is me. Why isn't things happening for me? Yeah. Right? Why is this event happen? Why did it happen to me? It's always questioning why me and blaming myself. Maybe it's my fault. And when and then a couple of years ago, something happened in our life that I said, maybe there's something greater. And I only said that because I read something from a book that talks about shifting your mindset to that, meaning just when a door closes, something opens. And I just started doing that every time something happens that's out of my control. I always think that maybe there's something greater. And lo and behold, something greater happened. And that was like, that was the first time that I've noticed that. And okay, why don't I start practicing that? And a couple of weeks ago, I had connected all the dots, like everything that happened to us. And it's much easier for me. It's much easier to do because of whenever something happens, before I question why this is happening, now my mind goes to, oh, maybe there's something better.
Yes.
There's something better.
When one door closes, if we focus on the closed door, we won't be looking around to see the next one that can open. Mm-hmm. So we can't stay riveted on this bad thing and framing it as bad. Mm-hmm. We have to look at it as, okay, where's the opportunity here now? And that's where we can find the opening instead of being so narrow-minded and focused with our negative judgment. Gay and I have learned through the years, we've had things that we thought were disasters in the moment and turned out to be the best thing that could have ever happened.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys always think that way, or has this come natural to you? Because in the beginning, I didn't believe it. In the beginning, I know when the door, I've known this quote for a long time. When a door closes, something opens. And I didn't believe it, like your friend didn't, because it can't be true. It can't be. Anything that happens to us isn't meant to be. Like, why do we think this way? And why should we think that this happens for a reason now? What's the benefit?
Right. No, we didn't always feel that way. We were more like you, Lorenz, where, woe is me and feeling sorry for ourselves with situations, not since we've been together, but in our prior lives before we got together. And what drove me to therapy, I was in finances too. I was a stockbroker. Is that it wasn't that life wasn't successful. I mean, sure, it was successful, but I wasn't as happy as I thought. If we're on this earth, we should be able to be happy most of the time. We should be joyous. And I was lacking something. I knew I was lacking something. And that's what drove me to therapy, which then drove me to want to be a therapist to help other people, my own personal therapy.
What's the lack? Why do we think we're lacking? Is it wanting more? Because I read a book that says if you don't change your perspective, even if you get $1 million today, you're still gonna be unhappy. You're gonna be happy for a second.
Oh yeah, remember Geffen from the Dream Team? He said those who think money is going to make them happy obviously have never had any. And so no, I don't think. It wasn't that I didn't have the things around me that I wanted. It wasn't like I was wanting more objects, but there just wasn't enough joy, I guess.
I think part of it is our culture too. We're always taught to strive and to want more.
Yes.
An analogy I give to clients is, someone just bought a Learjet and they're happy because they always wanted their own private plane until they go to the country club and meet somebody who bought a Gulfstream.
I was gonna ask you about cultural programming and the role it does for dissatisfaction.
Exactly.
And the comparison. There's always somebody smarter, richer, more beautiful, more handsome. That's always going to be.
You can chase it forever.
Yeah, because we think that once we get that thing that we've always wanted, we are going to be happy. But if you go back to everything that you wanted, when you got it, it took a second, and then we want something else again. Like there's something else.
We got the high, but then it, dissipated.
It does, and that fact of life is what resonated with me, because once you get the house, once you get the car, and then what now? What's next? That's always the question. What's next?
Right.
Once you get that, that thing that you always wanted. If you go back to your history, once you got something, there's always something that you want more.
Right.
After that,
it's endless.
And
go
ahead, Dean.
No, I was just going to say sometimes I do a little exercise with clients who are in a woe is me mode or wishing they had more than they have. And I say, okay, why don't we do this? And I have them basically within a minute or two, I could either get you into a good mood or a sad mood. I get you in a good mood by saying, well, what are the things you have that you're grateful for?
Right.
And people neglect the little things that are really huge. Like sometimes they start to think, well, I'm not sure. Well, you woke up this morning. You were able to get out of bed. You were able to walk to the kitchen and get a clean glass of water.
Is that lack of perspective, Dean?
I think so, because we take that for granted. There are so many places in the world where getting clean water is a challenge.
Having a warm shower.
The ability to walk and talk and see this beautiful earth. Those are all gifts. And if we take them for granted, then we won't get the joy that they were meant to give us.
Dean, is there a science behind that we sometimes when we get 80% praise, 20% criticism, we always tend to focus on the criticism? Is there a science behind that? It's always the case.
It's just about having the mindfulness to balance. We have to, in my opinion, the science is forgetting about perfection. Forget about having it all. Things sometimes have to be good enough. And there's your balance.
What are the major causes of unhappiness for you guys that are in our control right now?
You mean for us or in life?
In general, and maybe for you guys too. The major causes of, unhappiness for most of us. Because for me, my major cause of unhappiness for me was I never looked at, or I never valued anything that's in front of me. I always want something else and wanting something else. And I thought a week ago really explained this to me. And it goes, if I am to give you a gift, if I'm maybe the universe, or if you believe in God, if God gives you a gift and you don't recognize it and you don't appreciate it and you're always wanting more. Imagine if I give you a gift now as a present and you said, I don't want this, I want something else. Like I'll never give you another gift. Because you're ungrateful, right? If I was the universe, I would never give you a gift anymore because you're not seeing what's in front of you.
Right.
So, Lorenz, we're very strong spiritually, and we work on being grateful for a million things. I mean, we get out of the shower. Oh, it's wonderful.
Are we not grateful? Are we not grateful, Gay? Are we not grateful enough? That's why we're unhappy.
Oh, I think that's a big thing.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely huge. Counting our blessings, that kind of thing. And doing things that bring that into focus. For example, like you said, you started meditating. We meditate on a regular basis. And that, clears out the world for a while and all the stresses of the world so that we can remember why we're around.
That's right.
So different things that we do bring those things to our attention, and we've evolved over time.
Absolutely. We were not always like this. I think that another thing that's important is realizing what your purpose is, having a purpose that you can relate to and you value it. So because we're psychotherapists, we believe that our purpose is to help other people, to help people have, richer relationships and happier lives. And we do believe in God. We believe we're doing God's work. So it's not a drag come Monday that we have to go to work. We're kind of excited that, okay, we get to change some lives today. And at the end of the day, there's a great satisfaction to that. Now, go ahead.
I have a great story of a client about the comparison. So this client, this really shows it so clearly. This is in the book too. He came in, he was very depressed. Why are you depressed? I don't make enough money. How much money do you make? Now, this is 15 years ago, okay? And he says, I make $250,000 a year. So 15, 20 years ago, that was in the top, 5%. So I went through that with him. I said, listen, you're in the top 5%. A lot of the world doesn't even have a car. You have 3 houses, you have 5 cars. And then I just went in one thing after another. And Lorenz, I could see his energy starting to shift. But the problem was he produced high quality, high ticket items. And he found a lot of clients that could purchase these items in Palm Desert because they were old money. Nobody can compete with old money. So even though he was in the top 4%, he loved the fact that he had these clients at first because they were able to purchase his goods. But after a while, he started comparing himself to these clients that had had money for hundreds of years, right? Families that had passed it down. There was no way he could compete with that. But I saw him walk into the office depressed and walk out feeling pretty good about himself because he had used a bad comparison. So that was changing his thinking, changing his mind.
How much work does it take for somebody like that to shift their mindset? How much work?
Well, he did it in a session. Usually it takes a lot longer than that. But I mean, who could argue with those stats?
Right.
But for most of us, I think You know, it's constant looking inside of our minds and watching if we're comparing.
I think that's the key is monitoring our process.
Right.
When we start to wander into that wanting mode, wait a minute, let's look at what I have and be grateful. You know, Lorenz, it's like a relationship. Too many people are focused on the flaws their partner has and not looking at the beauty and joy and talents that their partner is bringing to the relationship. And we all have flaws.
If we look for them, they're going to be there.
Yeah. So what you focus on is what you get.
What expands.
So is shifting your mindset to focusing on, let's say you mentioned a partner or a spouse, to not focusing on what they're doing wrong, but maybe focusing on what they're doing for you and how they're helping you live your life. And that is huge because we tend to, if you do look for something, we're gonna find it. Right?
Yeah, right.
And like I heard this from a book that says if you look for a red car, you're gonna find it outside.
That's
if you look for a pickup, you're gonna find a pickup. So it's like the same with, you know, with food, with keto. If you focus on what you can have, it becomes easier. But if you focus on what you can't, it becomes not sustainable. It becomes hard.
Yeah.
So I love that.
There's an expression I like to give to my clients, and I tell them that the mind is like a wild stallion, and it will drag you around like a rag doll if you let it. But if you grab the reins and you're controlling the stallion, now you've got an amazing powerhouse underneath you.
Is it as simple as staying out of our heads? And
sometimes we have to be in our heads and say, oh, here's a good example. There was one day it was really hot. It was like 120 degrees. And I was thinking, God, this is so hot. This is really miserable. And then I thought, wait a minute. You used to live in Seattle. It was cloudy and dull and drizzly and miserable, depressing. And you live in this town now. And it instantly turned me around to being grateful for the weather. And okay, I can roll with the heat because I like the sunny days. You know, so I think it's constantly not just being out of our minds, spending time with that too, like with meditation, but also being in our minds and us having control of them.
Monitoring what we're thinking is the reason to be in the mind, because those thoughts will just go down a trail all by, as Gay was using the horse analogy, all by itself, and you don't even realize it until you're down that trail. So that's where I don't think it's a lot of work. What it is it's the constant work, Lorenz, of consistently finding the negative thoughts, the woe is me thoughts, the I don't have enough thoughts, and just in the moment, just making a little shift to, hey, you know what I do? I've got lots of great stuff. You know?
You do.
I do. It's the truth.
I want to ask you guys, for the both of you, and for me, it was ego that's stopping me from accepting and finally talking to a therapist, because for me, I don't want to be, you know, obviously it's a trust issue for me, and I was scared to talk about my problems. And as a man, you know, our society,
right?
If you're a man, you can't talk about your problems.
Right.
And you know, in my culture as well as Filipino, we have a toxic culture where they don't really believe in mental health. They don't really believe in mental illness, and you're expected to just shake it off because it's not real. It's not true. You're just, you know, experiencing something that's normal, and don't talk about it. We're taught to not talk about it. Right. And for me to be able to accept what I'm going through and, you know, risk, for me, it was a risk in the beginning, because I'm risking to be called something, you know, to be called crazy, right? I don't want to be called crazy and
weak.
Or weak. And what needs to happen before now it's more talked about, which is great. Mental health is something that people know that's a fact of life, and we all have it, and we all need to take care of it. But there's still, misinformation out there. So for people that may be listening right now that's scared, and what's their first step, to be able to accept and trust that they're safe, they're in a safe place?
Well, I think it's good that they would find a therapist, and it has to be, Lorenz, somebody they connect with. Because in order for us to be vulnerable, we have to feel safe. And so if they find somebody like you did, it sounds like, you find somebody you feel safe with, now you can start to open up. And I think that's a huge part, getting things out instead of stuffing them.
Yeah. And I think that it's important for people to understand that the therapist is a neutral person who is not there to judge. Plus, they hear so many things all day long. And they realize all of the human weakness, the human condition. Yes. So really, nobody's going to come in and tell me something that I haven't heard before after doing this for 23 years. And so there's not going to be any judgment. And so lose the self-consciousness. Know that that therapist is simply a tool for you. And just be honest and open, because that's about you taking care of yourself. And if you're worried about how you're appearing to your therapist, it's not going to work.
And just by talking, it's not like the therapist solves any problems. The therapist is there to give different perspectives and to really listen. But a lot of the growth comes from the things that come out of your own mouth. You hear yourself,
Yep.
You're becoming your own therapist at the same time.
So how do we become aware of and start identifying these negative old beliefs that we have? Is it through meditation? How do we start? If I'm somebody that's never meditated in my life, how do I become vigilant in what I'm thinking?
Well, I believe meditation helps in lots of areas, but this would just be realizing that you have the negative thoughts and then watching. Sometimes I'll say to a client, because I think we've all suffered from this, we come from parents telling us we should do this or that. And, we have a lot of negative tapes running in our heads. And I think sometimes I'll tell a client, listen, this week, I just want you to watch your thoughts. And then just kind of write that down and tell me how often you have negative thoughts or critical thoughts about yourself. And it blows their minds. When they pay attention, they can't believe how often there are negative thoughts flowing.
True. And they don't realize that you have a choice. Every moment and in every situation, you have a choice how to respond to it. Instead of just, you talked about old cultural beliefs. Those are reactions. It's like a knee-jerk reflex, right? Where you just react in a way that you were taught. Maybe you saw your parents or, the town you lived in. That's the way people responded or reacted, rather. And we don't have to do that. We could realize, we're free from that. I can respond differently. I don't have to go into a woe is me. I could go into, wow, this is interesting. I wonder what's going to happen next.
Right. Curiosity.
How about for people there are some people that can't be alone with their thoughts. They're scared maybe, or they find that it's not helping them to be alone with their thoughts, because there are people that fall asleep with a static noise, right? Because they don't want to hear the thoughts. They rather hear noise to fall asleep. There are some people that are like that. For those people that are scared to, be alone with their thoughts, what are the steps to start this healing journey for them?
You start on that one, honey. Go ahead.
For them, I would just suggest finding a therapist so that they can start getting things out.
Yeah.
And then they could start examining some of their, a therapist would help them examine some of their thoughts so that the thoughts might not be so frightening to them.
Yeah.
The other thing, and this was taught to me by my therapist years ago before I became a therapist, is sitting with the anxiety that those thoughts bring. Instead of trying to flee, to duck, to dodge, to hide, to distract, when you're feeling anxious, my therapist told me, sit with the anxiety, Dean. And I would wonder, why the heck would I want to do that? The reason is because whatever you sit with long enough, you desensitize to. So if your thoughts scare you and you force yourself to sit with them instead of distracting yourself, eventually your thoughts won't scare you.
Right. That's huge. I like that. I sit with your anxiety. If you're somebody that's, obviously if you're scared you're just building the fear. If you're dodging or
Exactly.
you're just building every time, let's say you had a fear, and every time you avoid that, the fear becomes stronger. And there's a book that I read, if you guys are experiencing this fear from your thoughts, there's a book by Michael Singer, Untethered Soul.
Untethered Soul.
That's one of our favorites.
Oh, yes, we love that book.
Yes, he talks about the thorns, that when the thorns are your fears, and when you avoid the thorns, they gain strength. They get stronger. And every time you make a movement, and you maybe, I forgot how he explained this, but it's up to you guys to find out. Untethered Soul by Michael Singer, it helped me a lot, changed my perspective about thoughts and how to deal with them. And it's really just to summarize, you cannot avoid your fears. You have to go through your fears and push through your fears to because there's obviously, for me, fear is where growth is. If you go towards your fear, that's where growth is. So that's what I came to learn from my own experience. And is that something that's you guys talked about that being your favorite book? Why is it your favorite book, guys?
Well, one of our favorites, I'd say.
Yes.
I think I remember the line, living with your mind is like living with a crazy roommate.
Exactly.
That was like my favorite thing, and that's when you don't have control of your thoughts.
Right.
So that's why it's really, really important to do that, to be mindful of your thoughts.
Yeah.
He really nailed it.
Yeah.
He really nailed it with that line.
And also, I was, I talked about my story. I was somebody that's very self-critical, right? At the same time, I wasn't doing the work, which created this friction because my action doesn't align with my goals.
Right.
Right.
And so if I want this, I have high hopes, but I'm not taking action towards this goal, I'm just going to be somebody that's been always wishing. Always wishing.
Spinning.
Yeah. So
Right.
what's the next course of action for start to shift? Because what needs to happen mentally? We talked about that, a little bit about that. And what do you think we have to understand first to start changing? Because I think it was you, Gay, that talked about, being being proactive versus being reactive. What does that mean? And how do we become more proactive?
Well, in our orientation in psychology, it's called self-activation. And what that means is we are able to have a goal out there and we're able to design a strategy to get there. But we have to take some action. And a lot of times people will have goals, but they don't put together a strategy or they won't take the action to reach those goals, which is then depression and frustration.
And if they're really self-critical, one of the things I tell my clients is, okay, the analogy of the carrot or the stick. And just for those who don't, this is how you get a donkey to move, to pull a cart. You've got a choice. You can either hang a carrot in front of him, which is positive motivation. The donkey will move toward the carrot because it wants to get its teeth on it. Or you can use the stick and swat him on the behind. So when we look at ourselves as the donkey, do you want to use a carrot or a stick? If you're using a stick to motivate yourself, it's like, why don't you give yourself a break? Find the carrot and go for it with enthusiasm and with something you can look forward to, instead of motivating yourself with the stick. Oh, I should have done better. Oh, I should have done it faster. You know, so that's just another shifting of a paradigm. Motivate yourself with carrots, not sticks.
I love that. I love that. And I also heard this quote: whenever you're anxious, tell yourself you're excited.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, Lorenz, because a lot of people confuse those two. I've had people come in and they say, "Oh, I'm so scared to start this new job. I'm just so scared," or "I'm so scared because I've started this new relationship." And I say, "Well, could you be excited?" But because anxiety is talked about so much, everybody kind of lumps it into that bucket, when a lot of times it's just excitement. Could there be a little bit of fear, like starting a new job? Sure, but that's not the overriding feeling.
You don't have to focus on that part.
Right.
You could, once again, you could look at the good stuff. You know, I use a similar analogy. I tell people, well, why do people buy tickets to get on a roller coaster?
Yeah.
You're excited, but that thrill is also fear. You know, oh boy, how high are we going and how fast are we coming down?
Right.
You know, but as long as we can look at the exciting part of it, we'll keep buying those tickets.
Wow. Also, I want to talk to you guys about keto and how you guys connected that through your practice. And I think it's absolutely amazing, because when I was, struggling with depression, I learned cognitive behavioral therapy, meditation, but not until I stumbled upon keto that it gave me so much energy and relieved my anxiety and depression. And
That's interesting. That is so interesting.
Yes.
you know what, Gay and Dean, I was somebody that's never really finished a book before keto. And I would always fall asleep. I could never get past chapter 1. In school, I was somebody that's, have difficulty learning. And I thought I was just lazy. And when I look back now on what I eat and what we eat in our culture, it's a lot of grains, a lot of bread, a lot of pasta, a lot of sugar in my system that's causing my ability to learn, or ability to actually become the best version of myself. And
Exactly.
now this month I am about to reach my 100th episode for this podcast, and I could never imagine myself. Thank you so much.
That is wonderful.
Congratulations,
That's
right.
really an accomplishment.
I could never imagine myself doing anything close to this. So before keto, and it's the energy. It's not.
Yeah.
I always use the excuse that I don't have enough time. First of all, if you don't have time for your own health, that's an excuse, that automatic excuse.
Yes.
Label it an excuse, because you can never put your health, in the back burner.
Right.
Now I understand that now, and you can never put a price on your health, because people always say, "Oh, keto is expensive." Well, are you really putting a price on your health? Or, for me, if you think about it, ever since we started keto, our expense, our going out, going to restaurants actually helped. Not going to restaurants anymore actually helped us, because we don't have that expense anymore, and so it's just a give and take. We're cooking at home more, which is great, and which is a give or take. But for you to put a price on your health is, for me, it's just an excuse for you not to try, or you haven't been in pain enough, or you haven't struggled enough to try something different.
Right.
What's your opinion on that, guys?
Well, the pain's a good one. You triggered me. You can ask Gay about. I have two bad knees, both of them for different reasons, but they were just. I thought I was going to have to get two knee replacements.
When Dean got up and down
Or out of a car.
his face, I mean, it hurt me. He was in terrible pain. And so
I'd get stuck halfway sometimes.
when he was up, he was fine. When he was sitting down, he was fine, but up and down was terrible. So we thought he'd have to have two knee surgeries.
Mm-hmm. The big surprise is we start keto to get the energy. And it was about 3 weeks when my knee pain vanished completely.
Completely.
And it's been 3 years now, almost, you say? Honey?
Yeah.
And my knees, I don't need new knees. My knees don't hurt me.
You know what I forgot to ask you guys is, what did your doctor think about switching to keto? Or have you told them at all?
We don't really go to the doctor.
Right. We do have, a lot of the health practitioners we see are colleagues of ours. And so we pick and choose them. Our first one, Craig, was very open. In other words, if you're like really Western medicine by the book,
Right.
we're not going to see that practitioner. We want somebody who's willing to think outside of the box. So we have two doctors who are both very pro keto. They understand it. I mean, our one doctor has a big book. Cholesterol has nothing to do with heart disease, right in his office. And
he does keto himself. He does it in an interesting way. He does it to lose weight, and then he loses weight, and then he goes off it, and he gains weight, and then the next year he goes on it again to lose weight.
So we won't see a practitioner who doesn't like keto, because we know that they're just stuck in the old medical model, and they have no room for all of the reams of information that's out there, just like the Noakes Society.
A very good example is that keto has been so successful in terms of heart health, unbelievably successful. And yet I have people coming in that have had a heart attack, and their doctor is telling them to be on a low-fat diet.
Right.
And then I've had a couple of people come in with doctors that have said, the keto diet. The guy that wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's, which is, I'm fascinated with your story, Lorenz, that your depression and anxiety dissipated. Well, your brain is 70% fat, and keto's high fat.
Yeah.
And so I went and I saw a lecture with the guy that wrote the book, The End of Alzheimer's. And lo and behold, he doesn't call it a keto diet, but he's recommending the keto diet. So for brain health, and the incredibly increased rate of Alzheimer's and dementia now. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So this is something, if I have a client that has that, or someone in their family has that, I will tell them about the keto diet if they're interested. Sometimes they're going to believe the doctor.
Yeah. My heart breaks for those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was a long time ago, there was a Pritikin diet. I don't know if you remember that, Lorenz. And he was just like, no fat, no oil, no, zero. Try to get it down to nothing. Well, within 1 year, people on that diet were becoming severely depressed. Yeah. And it turns out that the sheaths on our nerves in our brain need fat, or they will start to deteriorate. So he was completely wrong. The diet did get modified, but not to the degree that we do in keto.
Some people also mistake low carb with ketogenic diet. Because if you're on a low carb diet and you are not in ketosis,
right?
You're that's what happened to me. I was in that energy crisis because I was eating, chicken breast and broccoli, a little bit of rice or grain, and not low carb enough to be in ketosis, but also low in carbs. I have an energy problem because I'm not giving myself glucose and I'm not giving myself fat. So I'm just having this energy crisis, became depressed, and lo and behold, my health really deteriorated. But I'm just really glad for, it's a luxury to have a doctor that really advocates for keto, because a lot of people's doctors do not, like my parents. Both of my parents have a doctor that doesn't recommend it. So even though they know I'm studying this, practicing it, and even though I do talk to them about it, they still would follow
Believe
their
the
doctor, believe the doctor. And so what's my who am I?
Yeah. What are your qualifications?
What are my
Exactly.
qualifications? So
But doctors don't have a lot of time to study
And nutrition is way down on their list.
on their list. The other thing that happened to Dean that I would say is he always was not that great of a sleeper. And I noticed that he was sleeping better. And I think that was the fat too.
Yeah. Very
Yeah.
satiating.
Yeah. And then when I went through menopause, Lorenz, I never had a perspiration problem in my life. But when I went through menopause, for some reason, I started perspiring profusely under my arms and my feet. And I would talk to people about that, like the doctors, nobody knew. And after keto, all of a sudden that just, I don't know how
It
long
went
it
away.
even took. I just noticed after a couple of months, I didn't have that any longer. And then I also had a rash,
You had a skin rash that cleared up.
a skin rash. That took about 6 months. But all of a sudden I noticed I didn't have that anymore.
And
That's
then,
awesome.
We were sold.
and then we go in and we have our blood work done. And I showed it to one of my physicians, and he said, "Wow, you're Superman."
Yeah.
We don't take blood pressure medication. We don't take statins to lower our cholesterol.
We take nothing.
We're
but,
eating a lot
but
of-
hormones.
we're eating
We
a lot
do
of
take
fat.
hormones.
And it just keeps everything running smoothly.
So the results really, sold us.
The problem for me is, for people to just try, to get them to
just
try,
it.
and to stick to it long enough to see the results is why I'm so fascinated with talking to people on how they did it, or why they did it, and why they started it. What gave them the desire to start something different? Because keto is something that's so different. There's a lot of unlearning. There's a lot of education, because if you don't know how it works, your mind goes, how is this person losing 100 pounds in a year?
Right.
But for me, your mind goes to, that can't be safe, right? You must be starving yourself. And for me, my answer to that is you have to really learn about keto. You have to really learn how it works, how you fuel your body. And once you do that, you're going to understand why it's working, right? You can't just assume that it's unsafe, right?
Right.
That's
And
my
there's
that's
plenty
my
of material
dilemma
out there.
to this day, because I haven't
Plenty of
seen
books.
a lot of people around me that
And a
been
bunch
willing.
of stuff on YouTube that's fascinating.
Yeah.
And we've collected all of it, and we try to share it with our clients.
I love that, guys. I love that. Hey, Dean, you do have a book that,
Yes.
and you also, Gay, you do have a book. Can you guys talk a little bit about your book? I think we
Yeah.
have a few minutes here.
ahead.
I'll start with you, Dean.
Mine is called Tactical Boundaries: How to Make All of Your Relationships Work for You. It's available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. And so mine is about boundaries. That seems to be one of the biggest problems in relationships, where people don't know how to establish and maintain boundaries, or they don't respect the boundaries that another person has said that they expect. So it causes people to get into nagging and arguing. Whereas if we just make an agreement, okay, this doesn't work for me, and my wife respects that, whether it makes sense to her or not,
Right.
and vice versa. She has some things that maybe she likes or doesn't like. My job as a person who loves her is to, give her what she likes and not do what she doesn't like, and vice versa. Now we have something going. But if we keep going against what our partner wants, I'll give you one that I have a story. One person might have family members who stop by without calling. Okay, and then that upsets the wife because it's like we're both working people. We've got kids. When we get a few minutes to sit down, all of a sudden the doorbell rings and it's 3 of your family members coming over to socialize. And the person whose family it is might say, well, I don't want to hurt their feelings, or, come on, their family, or you can do this. Instead of saying to the family, you know what, it's really important that you respect our lives and our home and our lifestyle. So if you could just give us a call. Mm-hmm. See, but people won't do that. And then that becomes a constant tug of war. That's just one little example.
It's a good one because people have to know who they are in order to set boundaries too. So you have to do some internal work. Yeah, it's a great book. Mine, Lorenz, I don't know if you can see it, is Your Guide to Self-Actualization, How to Be Happy, Successful, and Free. And it's going off of the Maslow studying the healthy people and what made them healthy. And in one part of this is, one chapter is trying new things. And in that chapter, I think I talk about our experience with trying keto and what it did for us. But the whole idea is, if we know what self-actualized people do and they're happy and they're making the amount of money they want to make, they're having the love interest they want to have, and it could be anything. It could be $20,000 a year as a gardener, or it could be over $1 million as a CEO. The point is they're getting what they want. And so I wanted to put something forth about if we want to be a good skier, we're going to get a good coach that's a good skier. We're going to find out what makes them do it. So that's what that's about.
That's great.
That's awesome, guys. And you guys have shared a lot on this show that we definitely would have to re-listen. There's a lot here that, that are actionable items that you can try right now to
Absolutely.
be able to, start shifting your mind into creating this lifestyle that you want. And again, you have control with what you see. And if you just focus on the good things and not focusing on, the bad things that happens, then your life will drastically change, in my opinion. Drastically change. And quickly. And, trust, building trust and building relationships, your book, Dean, talks about how, building boundaries with people. And sometimes that's not easy to do.
That's true.
It is a necessary thing to do to be able to make sure that moving forward, you're able to move forward, right?
And that's what creates trust, too.
Yeah.
The boundaries, and you can count on them.
Those are hard conversations to have, but they are necessary.
They're necessary
for a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Absolutely. But the
and
good
it takes
stuff
courage. Takes courage to step up.
Yeah.
I love what you guys are doing. I will link everything in the description below so you guys can check out the books. And thank you so much, Dean and Gay, for coming on. I really appreciate you guys, and I love your story. I love what you guys are doing for your community, and what, a better place to, talk about your story than here in the Keto and Coffee podcast, right, guys? All right.
Thanks for having us on, Lorenz. We enjoyed our
It's my
time
pleasure.
with you. Yeah.
Appreciate the
My
opportunity.
pleasure, guys. For everyone that's listening right now, where can people find you guys?
We're in Palm Desert, California.
Yes.
Um,
TheMightyMind.com.
is our website. TheMightyMind.com. And that has all of our contact info. And we do remote sessions. So no matter where you are in the state or anywhere, we can do it as a life coaching if you're somewhere else as life coaches. So yeah, they can contact us and we'd be happy to set up an appointment.
Awesome, guys. Thank you guys so much once again for sharing your story here, guys. And we'll talk more, okay, guys?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, Lorenz.
Pleasure meeting you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure meeting you guys. Bye-bye.